Greetings to all of you viewers of Equinoxe Television, 6 p.m. in Douala. And it's time for the news. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our largest story this evening, Professor Maurice Kamto speaks out for the first time after his candidacy was rejected finally by the Constitutional Council. Professor Kamto recognizes the concern of Cameroonians for a better country, especially politicians, most especially to Honorable Jean-Michel Nichu and his said George Ekane for their enormous contribution during this period. High points of Professor Maurice Kamto's message to Cameroonians in this news edition. And also, Issa Chiruma Bakari, another presidential candidate, speaks to Cameroonians. That was yesterday. Chiruma tells Cameroonians the situation in the country at the moment is really dire and silence is not an option. Details as well in this news edition. And over 50 people have been arrested during this period. The reasons for this arrest coming up next. Viewers, those are our lead stories. Details and more when we come back. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for being with us. We begin with this element in politics. Sidelines October 12 presidential aspirant Professor Maurice Kamto has said a successful long-planned act by the regime in power through the Constitutional Council and MINAD with the complicity of the United Nations to block him from participating in the forthcoming presidential election is neither a knockdown nor a knockout. In a declaration recently, the unfortunate Manidem candidate affirms he is up and for the people. Innocent Ase went through the message of Maurice Kamto to Cameroonians and compared this report for the news.
Professor Maurice Kamto, the Manidem presidential aspirant, excluded from the October 12 presidential race, in the declaration says the decision by ELECAM, the Constitutional Council, and most importantly, the Biya regime, to exclude him from participating in the race was long planned.
This regime never accepted the fact that we avoided the big political trap of the 2020 legislative and municipal elections by choosing the boycott. The regime wanted to destroy the CRM through these elections and never forgave us for escaping. From then on, the campaign to demonize the CRM and its national president was launched, and the decision was taken to prevent him by any means possible from taking part in the 2025 presidential election.
Postponement of the 2025 legislative and municipal elections, according to Professor Maurice Kamto, was a well-calculated move to avoid the CRM from having representatives in parliament, which could permit Kamto eligible to challenge President Paul Biya in the forthcoming presidential election.
It was with this in mind that the legislative and municipal elections scheduled for February 2025 were postponed until March 2026.
In the declaration, Kamto states how the people who yearn for change have been betrayed in broad daylight by ELECAM, the Constitutional Council, the justice system, and MINAD, with the complicity of the United Nations that signed a secret agreement with ELECAM months back.
This international community, so quick to stand by the dictatorship that is crushing the Cameroonian people, did not feel concerned by the CPDM regime's political crime against our people. On the contrary, it has sat on the values it claims to promote and defend.
Despite all these, Kamto remains calm, peaceful, determined, and up for the people of change.
Cameroonians, my dear compatriots, I'm on my feet and will remain at your side. The struggle continues.
Those who raised funds for his campaign are sure to be reimbursed following rejection of his candidacy.
Despite the expenses already incurred in connection with this campaign, I hereby inform you that the contributions received will be reimbursed.
Supporters of Professor Maurice Kamto await to know which political path the icon takes so as to follow as October 12 draws near.
And through a series of reports highlighting the failures of the present regime, Issa Chiroma Bakari speaks to Cameroonians on a short video circulating on social media. In that video, Chiroma, a candidate for the upcoming election, promises a responsible transition, and he says he has chosen to rise again with Cameroonians. Mala Glorin spoke with some political analysts and compiled their views on Chiroma's outing in this report.
Painting the suffering of Cameroonians under the regime for the past 43 years, according to Chiroma, is the best way to launch his presidential campaign, describing the state of bad roads, misery, injustice, poor infrastructure across the country.
Donc il a résumé.
According to a journalist and political analyst, Jean Bruno, the images are worth 1,000 words. He has summarized what he thinks is the legacy of the over 40 years of President Paul Biya in power. The former Minister of Employment and Vocational Training, in his 2 minutes 45-second video, says he is ready to bring the change that all Cameroonians are waiting for.
I have the experience. I know what is broken from the inside. I am ready to fix it.
A promise yet to be trusted by some Cameroonians.
The reason why Cameroonians would not easily trust Chiroma is the fact that when he was part of the UNDP, later on dropped out in a funny way, created his own party, then joined the ruling CPDM, which he was against as an opposition.
However, there is a glimmer of hope. According to Mark Antonia Kumbom, change is possible if Chiroma can stand by his words.
I think he might have good intentions. Chiroma, if you want the people to fall behind you, I think you should also be able to fall behind another person whom others can trust and give the person the capacity, the push, so that the change that we are all talking about can happen.
As days narrow to the presidential elections, Chiroma is increasingly being considered as a reliable and veritable opposition candidate, with some Cameroonians suggesting him as a leader of an eventual opposition coalition.
And on the installation of newly appointed DOs and SDOs across the national territory, we take you now to the southwest region, where a high-level insecurity, the lack of mobile telephone network services, the lack of office facilities for civil servants, limited educational facilities, and high-level land erosion are some of the major difficulties faced by the island subdivision of Idabato, behind the Dian division of the southwest region of Cameroon. Veritable problems which have been channeled to the government of the country by the people of that subdivision during the installation of their newly appointed divisional officer, Shea Roland. A reporter for me, Armstrong Sanda, was there. He now tells us more.
Braving the high sea was the option settled for by the senior divisional officer for the Indian division, Gibe Gibai Baldena, and his entourage, and rode to Idabato for the installation of Shea Roland Tamfo as divisional officer for Idabato subdivision.
We are happy to see you. How are you? We are happy to see you. How are you? Welcome.
Appointed by a presidential decree on July the 22nd, 2025, Shea Roland takes over from Iwane Roland at the head of an administrative unit described as important and strategic by the senior divisional officer.
Which particularities impose on him specific challenges.
With a rich and resounding career spanning over 19 years, Shea Roland Tamfo was described as a square peg in a square hole. Presenting him to the people of Idabato subdivision, the senior divisional officer challenged him to combat piracy and security and illicit trade.
He has to fight at full time and fully against maritime piracy. He has definitively to establish the authority of the state in that part of the country where the law and regulation enforced are not respected. He has to combat firmly against the underground economy.
Thanking the senior divisional officer and his entourage on behalf of the local population, the mayor of Idabatu called for the extension of mobile telephone network services to Idabatu, the construction of embankment walls at the sea, the creation of more school facilities, and the provision of office facilities for civil servants in the area.
In the same line, from Dentian, we take you now to the Kupe Maninguba division, where the newly appointed senior divisional officer for that division has been installed into his functions with charge to strictly respect the traditions of the local population. He has also been told to stop meddling in chieftaincy disputes, but should play his role as an administrator and allow the traditional institutions in place choose their leaders in accordance with their customs and traditions. Julia Bena Theophile takes over from Mungambo Ekima William. Our reporter Rex Afon was there.
Ngia Beina Theophile has taken the baton of command as Chief Civil Administrative Officer for Kupe Maningoba.
Ngia Beina Theophile, take command.
He has, however, received clear instructions from his immediate boss, the governor of the Southwest region, Bernard Okalia Bilai, concerning the handling of chieftaincy matters.
The population shall also be expecting you to exercise proven neutrality and objectivity, as well as the strict respect of the local customs and traditions in the handling of chieftaincy consultation or disputes. I exhort you to resist all forms of pressure from contesting parties or their supporters in order to avoid controversial decisions which jeopardize the credibility of the administration.
To work satisfactorily, the new senior divisional officer must collaborate with the local population.
The new SDO, Kupe Maningumba, shall first of all be at the disposal, fully at the disposal of the division, to take care of all the inhabitants, to follow up the project earmarked by the state for the development of this division.
Elites and locals are promised to support the incoming senior civil administrative officer throughout his stay in the division.
They can be assured that there will be collaboration with elites who have the responsibility as well to ensure that their own administrative unit, where they come from, is at peace.
As the number one administrator, the top administrator of the division, the SDO deserves, and I think he will have the support.
He takes over from Mungambo Ekema William, who has spent 3 years at the helm of the division. Though his achievements are enormous, he has been widely criticized for his inability to settle tensions in Manyemen, which sparked off due to chieftaincy tussle.
Away from that, inhabitants of Ninong village in neighborhood in the Melong subdivision of the Mongo division are expressing worries over a broken bridge which has been abandoned for the past 6 months. They say the broken bridge, which links several other localities in the area, affects movements in and out of the Ninong village. Cedric Chakutio tells us more.
Inhabitants of Ninong village in Melong are virtually cut off from the rest of the world. This is due to the bad constructed bridge connecting Busong to Ninong village, which is completely inaccessible to local residents. They say that one is forced to carry loads on his head and motorbikes on his hands to cross the bridge. Our parents are calling us every day. We want to send them bags of food, but how will we get there? We have bodies at the morgue. How do we transport them? We have to remove them from our vehicles and then carry them on our heads. It's really complicated. How do we do that? On this side is my motorbike, on which I unload the bag of cocoa and reload onto the motorbike. So I unloaded it to be able to cross, then reloaded it to leave. It's really painful.
Donc ça nous donne vraiment de la peine.
The contractor in charge of the construction of the bridge is nowhere to be found. According to local residents, the contractor left since February, leaving the inhabitants in pains.
Vous imaginez, ce pont-là était en...
Can you imagine? This bridge was still in good condition to serve us for another 5 years. The contractor destroyed it, allowing us to rebuild it. Here we are, 6 months later. Nothing. With the presidential elections approaching, local residents are crying out for help so that the bridge is rebuilt.
Comment voulez-vous que en cette période cruciale des élections, et je vous rappelle que le Ninon a 2 bureaux de vote.
Otherwise, they risk not participating in the election because reaching to the polling stations will be a real task for them.
La commission électorale, vous voyez pas elle qu'on va traverser pour arriver au village. Il y a des gens qui font des campagnes. Comment est-ce qu'ils vont traverser pour aller convaincre l'électorat?
Thanks, Cedric. And now let's move on to our series on how Cameroon is faring today. Mouanko, situated in the Sanaga Maritime Division of the Littoral Region, is well known for the production of misunda, some seashells. The natives who have been fishing as their main activity to feed their families are complaining about government's laws forcing them not to carry out that activity freely. And besides that, the road leading to Mouanko remains a key problem, with cars having to stop on the way several times because of the bad state of the road. Let's now have the details, or let's go to Mouanko with Sumajika Gabriel.
On the way to Mouanko, in the Sanaga Maritime Division of the Littoral Region, it was a very difficult trip due to the poor state of road. From Douala to Mouanko is about 110 kilometers. Traveling to Mouanko without the vehicle witnessing a breakdown is very rare, as it was the case of the vehicle we took. On the road to Mouanko, we have to continue our journey on foot, as the car has to be emptied before it climbs a hill, and we continue. The dust here changed the color of my bed. Finally, we arrived in Mouanko, which is not excluded from problems of unstable power supply, but very popular with the fishing of seashells. To know how the activity is being done, we took a bike and covered a distance of about 4 kilometers to the shores of River Sanaga, but again, the road gave us another surprise. We finally arrived in the village of the fishers of seashells, commonly known as Misunda. In front of us, we saw a mountain of emptied seashells. Fortunately, we arrived when the fishermen were just returning with loaded canoes. We met Cecile, who was cleaning the seashells. I'm a student in the Department of History, Economics and Research. I specialize in maritime sector. But how are these seashells treated? When the orders come, I immediately set fire, put water on it, then cook the seashells as you saw it. Cecile will try to convince us to eat the meat removed from the seashells. It could be eaten like that, but many people don't like it this way because it stays inside. So many prefer to clean it before cooking it, but you can still eat it like that. No issues. It is rich in protein. After removing the meat inside the seashells, they are dried for onward selling. But those who are involved in the business do have their own difficulties too. We don't have any other thing to do apart from fishing, but we have a lot of difficulties with the administration who want us to have authorization before fishing. Since it's already raining, sometimes when we go into the vehicle, at certain points, we have to go down and carry the luggages on our head to cross the bad spot before loading the car again, because the roads are very bad. We wish that the tax we pay should be used to repair the roads. In an attempt to know what the local authorities are doing to alleviate the situation of the seashells dealers, we met with Mr. Same, the first deputy mayor of Mouanko. The council is not in charge of constructing regional roads. The council can't take upon itself to tar the Mwanko, Edea wrote, it's the tax of the state. We do what we can. That is at the level of lobbying. Today, we have issues with Edea Dizange, Mwanko wrote, where the contract has already been approved, but cancelled about 2 times. We also noticed problems with electricity in the zone. Though we saw solar lights on the street and in some residents, is the council doing something? We have solar panel here, and we are trying to do more, particularly with areas which are very enclaved, because 60% of Mwanko is in water. While waiting for the promises to be realized, Mwanko is yet to be a paradise.
Thank you, Smart. That brings us to the end of the first part of the news. Let's move on to Talking Point. Viewers, our guest tonight is Charles Nana. He is a former U.S. Senate candidate. He's talking to us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting to be our guest tonight. Now, the rejection of Professor Maurice Kamto's petition at the Constitutional Council has been making news in Cameroon. You just watched in the news. He himself spoke to Cameroonians on that. We remember Professor Maurice Kamto did a grand meeting in France, which was attended by sympathizers from all over Europe and also America. You are in the USA, you're part of the diaspora. How did you guys receive the final verdict of the Constitutional Council on Professor Maurice Kamto's case against Ileka?
Well, the verdict of the Constitutional Council was catastrophic for an emerging nation. Most African nations since the early 1960s have been improving their democratic institutions and their democratic culture. This verdict from the Constitutional Council has set us back many, many years. Lots of Cameroonians in the diaspora, and I'm sure in Cameroon, have lost faith with both ELECAM and the Constitutional Council. This verdict was purely political and has absolutely nothing to do with the law. The Constitutional Council seemed to have different standards for different candidates. The CPDM had 2 candidates, Mr. Leon Onana and President Paul Biya. The Constitutional Council used its investigative power and rejected Mr. Leon Onana. Manedem had 2 candidates, Mr. Maurice Kamto and Mr. Jerene Yebga. The Constitutional Council refused to use its investigative power and rejected both candidates without even looking at the merits or the legitimacy of their various candidacy. Those are 2 different standards for 2 different candidates. They did not even try to show a little bit of neutrality. Their partisan stand was so glaring. And that is not what we need in a nascent or emerging democracy like ours. We don't need partisan hawks. It is my humble opinion that the Constitutional Council, this Constitutional Council, and all the members and ELECAM should be dissolved. We need to form a new, in future elections, we need to form a complete new institution. They have shown their limitations, and that's the beauty. The only good thing that have come out of this process is that we've seen the limitations of the Constitutional Council and the limitations of ELECAM.
Professor Maurice Kamto himself has been inviting Cameroonians to stay calm despite all what Manidem and Professor Kamto's supporters consider as injustice. However, we heard of some little disorder around Brussels in Belgium. Does that transmit some level of disappointment, according to you, or even anger within Cameroonians abroad and even those at home?
The answer is both yes and no. No, in the sense that Cameroonians in the United States did not attack the embassy in Washington. nor did they take to the streets. Yes, in the sense that Cameroonians in the United States were equally disappointed. The verdict from the Constitutional Council was a huge disappointment. The message also was crystal clear that the change we seek might not come through peaceful means or from the ballot box. That is scary. Cameroon is a peaceful nation. Cameroon is a peace-loving nation. We all want peace. We all love peace. But when that hope or aspirations of our youth get transformed into hopelessness, they begin to believe everything is lost. They have nothing to lose. And they begin to take the fight now to the institutions that incarnate the state. It's a scary state of affairs. It's not good. What do you expect when opposition candidates with a good following are arbitrarily excluded from the political process? What do you expect when opposition candidates are being prevented from even having meetings? We have to continue encouraging our youth that violence is not the answer, that they should continue pressing on their political or using political and the ballot box to express the change that they desire. But it's critically important for us to remind, or for us to be clear, that the verdict of the Constitutional Council has set Cameroon many years back. And it's most unfortunate. Even in the days of the CNU, we did not have this type of anti-democratic maneuvers.
Charles Nana, the way forward most Cameroonians are aiming at or thinking about now is a coalition with Professor Kamto as the leader, since he can effortlessly pull a huge crowd. Do you think that can be a more strategic lane to take at the moment to bring the desired change to Cameroon?
We implore all Cameroonians, especially those clamoring for change, not to be discouraged. All is not lost. The change we seek, we knew that from the very beginning, that the change we seek will come with Maurice Kamto or not. Maurice Kamto has done his part and has shown us the flaws and the limitations within our current electoral process. It is now time for us to do our own part. We need to begin to identify one out of the 11 candidates that were left standing and rally behind that one candidate, either based on ideological grounds or based on common interest. The common interest is the easiest of all to articulate. We want somebody different from CPDM. We want somebody different from the current ruling party that has been ruling this country for the last 43 years. As someone who ran for the United States Senate in our great state of Alabama, we had 67 counties. We have 67 counties. So running a statewide election requires a lot of funds, a lot of logistics. So we want to make sure that the candidate we identify has the funds and means to run a nationwide campaign. Number two, we have to make sure that we have poll watchers in every single polling station in the country on election day. That's something that the opposition have been unable to do in the past. But with the help of the diaspora, with the diaspora, we can help through funding. We can help ensure all polling stations have 2 or 3 candidates, 2 or 3 poll watchers on behalf of the opposition. Number 3, we have to ensure our friends and families go on the voting day and vote. Let their voices be heard. Let their votes be counted.
Now, before we go, Charles Nana, with all this happening in the electoral process in Cameroon, you've been following the event ahead of October 12 polls. You are in America, precisely in Washington, D.C. What image does all this portray of our country, especially of our country's democracy, to the outside world?
It gives a shameful image of Cameroon, especially vis-a-vis of other African nations with more advanced democratic institutions. It gives the impression Cameroon is a banana republic where laws are being bent to favor or exclude certain candidates and communities from the electoral process. Election results are being known way before the first ballots are being casted. It reminds me of an era when we had Amadou, one of the vice prime ministers, as a vice prime minister of Cameroon, where he publicly declared that Anglophones or individuals from the Western region can never be president of the Republic. Why so much distrust among ourselves? Why should we use our diversity, which is supposed to be a strength, to be a weakness? Our diversity should be our strength. Because of our diversity, we bring different aspects, different perspectives to the table to make Cameroon one and solid and indivisible nation. But when we have this level of distrust among ourselves, it is much more unfortunate. Even in the days of a one-party system, CNU, we did not have this type of undemocratic maneuvers by the ruling party or by the government, where the CPDM decides or elects who are the individuals or parties that will compete with them in upcoming elections. You cannot be a player in the game. You're the referee, you're the commissioner, and then you're also the judge. It's not possible. But again, hopefully, our democratic institutions will continue to grow, and in the near future, will not have this type of occurrences.
Thank you so much, Charles Nana, for accepting to be our guest on the news tonight, and hope to have you some other time to remind our viewers that you are a former U.S. Senate candidate, and we're talking to us from Washington, D.C. in the U.S. of A. Thank you, sir, for your time. And viewers, thank you so much for always being with us. Thank you for the confidence. Have a blessed weekend. For now, our programs continue. Equinoxe comes up at 7 p.m. and the news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. Bye-bye for now, and see you again on Monday.